I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next Pledge of Allegiance, I want you to come and lead it.
Yeah.
You did a great job.
They did great.
Next item, items of interest, recognition, and inquiry. Board members, anything?
I'd just like to thank everybody for their participation in the Chili Heart. It was a fun event, and the people that put it on did a great job organizing it. And I think the participants had a good time, and obviously it goes to a good cause. So good job to everybody with a Chili Heart. And on another note, the weather's looking a little bit like baseball, but this is a reminder to parents that this is the time of year to register for Little League, for St. Clair and Marine City Little League. So don't forget to do that.
Dr. Skolka?
Sure. We would once again like to thank Pastor Randy D'Alessandro and the United Church of God for donations of mittens and hats and warm weather clothing to our elementary students, so that those maybe in need of those things are taken care of in the winter, and especially at school during recess time. So thank you so much to United Church of God and their congregation.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is special recognition, East China School District Endowment Fund grants. Colleen Stover and Laura Cardemus presenting.
Yep.
Good evening, Dr. Skolka, board members. Thank you for having us tonight. I'm Laura Kiridemus. This is Colleen Stover. We're from we sit on the board of the East China Educational Foundation. And the Chili Heart Run, what fun that was Saturday. I don't know who we're going to thank for that great weather, but I'm sure there's somebody we should be thanking. But it was a great turnout. I mean, the participants came, the walkers, the runners. We really had just a great day, a fun morning. And we want to thank everybody who showed up, our sponsors. We had Neiman's Family Market donate water and food, Kids with the soup and the chili. So it was really just a great, great morning. So we'll see how much we raised. And again, the more we raise, the more we can give out in grant money. So that's what we're all about here. So it's a good thing. So we'll get on and see who all won the grants. Okay, so this is the 2016 spring grant recipients. A little bit about the foundation. It's an endowment fund through the Community Foundation of St. Clair County. With the spring 2016 awards, over $122,000 has been given out in grants. 2016 spring grant award recipients, 15 grants ranging from $199 to $755 are being awarded tonight for a grand total of $7,017. Okay, the first one, I apologize if I mess up anybody's name. The first one goes to Karen Maitland, Megan Jenks, and Michelle Fay, speech therapists. These speech teachers are purchasing 3 expanding expressions toolkits. This promotes student-centered learning through the multi-sensory approach by teaching students how to define, describe, make associations, state functions, categorize, and state differences and similarities. It feels like I need a speech therapist after that. Have to stay. Next is Jason Steyer from Riverview East High School. Jason is purchasing paint and plywood for ongoing work with the Safe Routes to School project. Next is Karen Alley from Gearing Elementary. Karen is purchasing Moby Max and ACBY iTunes app for all students in her classroom. Next is Tracy Bendit from St. Clair Middle School. Tracy is purchasing an iPad for use with her cognitively impaired students. Next is Stephen Fox from Marine City High School. Marine City High School has been fundraising to purchase Musser Marimba. This grant will get them closer to their financial goal. Next is Beth McComas from Marine City Middle School. Beth is purchasing a camera for use in her yearbook class. Next is Brooke Nowakowski. The elementary Spanish teachers are putting on an international carnival to be held at Gearing Elementary on this Thursday, February 25th. And this grant is used for the items needed for the event. Next is Michelle Barker from St. Clair Middle School. Michelle is using her grant money to extend her classroom subscription of EduCreations for one more year. Next is Sarah Ranger, a speech-language pathologist at Gearing and Palms Elementary. Sarah is purchasing a 5-program set of picture stories and language activities to assist her autistic students with social skills. Next is Megan Tomasek from Gearing Elementary. Many of Megan's students are language and cognitively delayed. This grant will go for the purchase of several games geared towards helping these students. And next is Allison Nowak from Bell River Elementary. Allison is purchasing ukulele strings and Cajun drum and Cajun bass pedal, a cymbal and stand, and a classroom set of stools. Lots of fun. Next is Scott Isley from St. Clair Middle School. Scott is purchasing 4 sound level sensors and 1 sound level meter for his STEM classes. Kika Milligan from Gearing Elementary. Kika is purchasing some core wobble chairs to assist students who have a hard time focusing in class. Next is Christy Sagan from St. Clair Middle School. Christy is purchasing a camera for use in her yearbook class. Next is Bill Westerhoff, Bell River Elementary. Bill is purchasing 2 basketball backboards with an adjustable height feature. Congratulations to the 2016 Spring Grant recipients. Do I go one more down?
No, you're good. You're good. 1, 2, 3. Congratulations, everybody.
Thank you. And there's a little information up there on how to donate. Make checks payable to Community Foundation of St. Clair County, the East China Educational Foundation. And again, the more money we raise, the more money we can give to the schools. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the first of our two spotlights tonight, St. Clair High School, Mr. Ronald Miller, Special Ed Worksite Project-Based Learning Program.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's my pleasure to have Linda Ratliff working with me this year. She's going to be making a presentation on a program that affects students at both ends of the district, and it's just a tremendous success. So I'm going to get out of the way and let the star of the show tell us what's going on.
Dr. Skalka, member of the board. I'd like to talk a little bit about work-based learning. There are 3 laws that govern this program. Pupil accounting that tells us where students can be and what they can be doing and still be counted as school education. The Fair Labor Standards Act, which indicates that this work training is training, not paid employment. And the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act, which allows us to work with students with special needs in training them to transition from school to life after school. So with this, we have some compliance requirements. All the students are on a training agreement or a training plan, which is completed between the school district, the work site, and the family. There is safety training that is done with the students at the beginning of their program. Attendance forms and emergency cards are at the work sites. Of course, insurance is a big concern for work sites and for us, for our students, so I have to ensure that all work sites have general liability and workman's comp insurance, which is to protect their employees while our students are there. East China School District's insurance covers our students. We provide transportation. Thank you very much for getting the students to the work sites within our community. As the coordinator, I have to go every 30 days to ensure that they are safe and that they are progressing. Work sites also sometimes have requirements such as a confidentiality agreement if they're working in a medical facility, possibly a background check, or sometimes they have to have shots. How do we measure student progress? We really do it in 2 ways. Michigan, the state of Michigan, has career and employment standards and benchmarks. So students are rated on these. These are things such as, are they showing up for work on time? Are they dressed appropriately? Can they accept constructive criticism? How do they get along with coworkers, etc.? Also, they are judged on performance elements, which are specific job skills that are industry standards in their particular field of training. Over 26 years that I've been doing this in East China schools, this is a smattering of all of the businesses in the county that have participated. I think it's quite phenomenal. There's almost 100 of them up there. So thank you to the community for providing this for our students. The benefits of the worksite to me are fantastic. When I see these students who struggle in school with reading and with math go out into the worksite and how it changes their perception of themselves, they're actually getting real life experience, sometimes for the first time because they're so concentrated on their studies. They are in a position where they can make a difference, and for the first time, we're focusing on their ability versus their disability. So let's take a look at a few students. So here's Kayla. She's at Riverview Vet Center. She has become a great groomer. She assists in surgery and doing lab work, and I'm happy to say they have hired her. She's going to be graduating this year, and she's already working there. Caitlin is at Pine River Elementary in a special ed classroom. She's demonstrating a technique called hand over hand. She's helping this young man learn how to cook. Neiman's Pharmacy allowed us to have Tiffany in the pharmacy. What high school student gets to do that? And medication was very important in her life, and she is bound and determined to become a pharmacist and is now in college pursuing that goal. Megan at Dr. Brooks' clinic, you can see she's assisting in surgery there. She's opening up a tool for the surgeon and assisting at an appointment. Paul is working at Lake Huron Medical Center, which is the old St. Joe's Mercy Hospital, and Caitlin's in the emergency room. Does she handle emergencies? No, but there are a lot of things that happen in an emergency room that students can do. And she's seeing if this is something that is going to be a good match for her in her future. So let's hear a little bit from what the business partners say.
So as a person who works in a business in the community, do you think this is a good idea for businesses to have these students, even though they have special needs? How do you see it benefiting the business?
Well, I honestly like I said, we've been doing this for, I believe, since the store's been open, possibly 4 or 5 years now. We've had students, and each one has been a joy to work with. We've had no issues whatsoever. I believe they have enjoyed the job themselves, and it helps them go out into the real world, be it if they do get hired in here or another place, but they're one-on-one with customers, they're one-on-one with employees, so I find nothing but good things about this program.
By the time they leave here, they come in, they punch in their cards, they report, and they go to their job duties, and they know them.
So you see a lot of growth with them from the whole time?
Oh, yes, most definitely a lot of growth. Not just in their skill, but in the way they talk to people, and I guess it would be maturity, being reliable and dependable and trustworthy. They learn all those things too, respecting each other.
So you think this is a good partnership between the community and the school district then in helping students with special needs be more successful after high school?
Oh, definitely.
All right, let's hear from a few students now.
I work at BTM. I do like inventory, stocks, sawing raw material, like raw stock. I also have assembled presses before, and I know a little bit about the CNC machines.
Okay, and then you also told me that you check coolant levels.
Yeah, I check coolant levels on the CNC machines. When they're low, I put oil in it, and I check the track oil for the bearings on the tracks. The BTM, because I want to get a job there when I turn 18 or get out of high school, so I can have a career.
And what is your career goal?
I want to become a CNC machinist when I get out of high school.
So tell me a little bit about why the work site is better for you than being in the classroom.
Because I like to work with my hands, and it's boring to write with a pencil all day in school.
Okay. So if you were going to give someone else advice about work-based learning, what would you say to them?
Do it.
Do it. All right.
I work at Kids Connection, and I work with babies.
Babies. Like how old are the babies?
6 weeks to like 2 years.
Okay. And what kind of work do you do with these babies?
I feed, put to sleep, and keep them company.
Okay. How many babies are in this room?
8 to 12.
It's a lot of babies.
Yeah.
Do they sometimes cry and get cranky?
Yep.
So then what do you do?
Calm them down.
Calm them down. So what's your career goal as a young person in high school?
To be a teacher for young children.
And lastly, Tyler.
A machine or a vehicle, and be like, well, we're going to do a filter change. So I'll just get under it, and he'll tell me what filters I got to change, and I'll grab the filters and change them, or if we're going to do lines, he'll tell me what lines to do.
Okay. So how does this relate to what you want to do for your future?
Well, in my future, I've been, like with my uncles and that, they've always been heavy equipment operators. Well, my uncle, he told me that this is a really good field to get into too, is to know like the mechanics of the machine, of like how does it, if I do this, what actually makes that work.
Okay, so you think this has a good basis for what you want to do in your future?
Oh yeah, very much.
And how does this compare to being in school for 3 hours a day?
Oh,
versus...
this is totally different. It's like I'm not even at school. It's like I'm learning and I don't even know it.
So really, research shows us if students have some experience in high school with working, whether it's paid or unpaid, they are much more likely to be successful as adults holding employment. Thank you.
Questions?
What a fantastic program. Oh my gosh. Now, are these students candidates to move on up into the transition program at RISA?
Yes, some of them are. Some of them go on to college. Some of them go right to work.
Excellent. Thank you for your presentation.
How many students have gone through the program, do you know?
On a typical year, when I'm at one high school, I have about 20. When I was at both high schools, I had as many as 30.
Wow. Fantastic.
I don't know if this made it back to you or not, but one of the students that happened to be featured there works at the same company I do. And last spring, when school was getting ready to be done, he asked his supervisor, if he could keep coming even though he was done for the school year. We had to tell him no, but he wanted to keep coming.
Very cool.
That's great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
While I have Linda up here, I'd like to bring to everyone's attention, and the board's been briefed on this, but Linda Ratliff next week is going to be recognized by the Michigan Council for Exceptional Children for being the 2016 Teacher of the Year. She's an incredible resource. Again, she's worked at both ends of the districts, all levels, has worked in Flint, Lapeer, East China School District for 26 years. She and I have walked a lot of road together, and there's no better partner than she in a school setting. Outstanding. This is Linda Ratliff. And also in line with special education, I want to recognize another young lady who I don't think is here tonight, unfortunately. Catherine Woolman participated in the polar plunge yesterday with the benefits going to Special Olympics. So that is the before, and there is the action photo. So she has the night off, well deserved. But again, proceeds going to Special Olympics this year. I talked with one of the representatives, and they're in the low 20,000s for this year's contributions. That's exceptional. So well done, wow. Catherine Woolman.
Thank you. Next item is Gearing Elementary School, Mrs. Linda Crandall, Learning Beyond the Classroom Walls.
Good evening, Dr. Scalca, Mr. Beward, members of the board. I'm Linda Crandall, principal of Gearing Elementary. Tonight we have the privilege of sharing with you an experience that takes our second grade students beyond the classroom walls to the local East China Park for an introduction to many of the human and natural characteristics of our community, which serve each of them as a springboard for what is the year-long curriculum in second grade for social studies and science. Tonight, sharing that experience with us, we have our Gatorific teaching team of Kika Milligan and Sherry Kemp, along with 4 of our students. So we hope not only will it provide some information for you, but we also thought that it may just provide a little bit of nostalgia for our retired second grade teacher, Jan Du Bois, who on many occasions took children on this same learning experience. So with that, we'll turn it over to Sherry Kemp.
So second grade social studies curriculum focuses on all of our St. Clair community, and we talk a lot about all aspects from the government of our community to the resources in our community to the natural features and the human features, as Linda said. So this field trip is a great way to introduce our students to some of those special characteristics. We begin our field trip actually with a little bus tour through our town instead of driving right down to East China Park, and we point out interesting features like the arch up at Palmer Park that was rebuilt and the famous statue of the woman and her children waving out at the freighters. And we found out that a lot of our students don't even know that St. Clair is actually on a river, so it's neat for them to actually get downtown and see that there's a river. And they find out that our town is special because they can see Canada straight across from it. We point out important features like that's the salt factory and the hospital and different businesses in our area that employ a lot of our parents. So it makes a lot of connections, and then when we go to mapping skills, they get to see that from a bird's eye view, so it's neat. When we get to the park, we had a park ranger come down, and she even discussed a lot of aspects of her job, which was really neat because they have a woman park ranger now, so we were doing girl power. And the girls really liked that as she talked about the pros and cons of her job, working outside all day, and what she likes best about that. As a scientist. To further enhance our outdoor education day, we also sat by the campfire and we sang songs because some children never get that experience to go out camping. And we sang songs about friendship. Whoop, we went one too far. Friendship, making new friends. We taught little hand movements. This land is your land, and it was a fun time. So Brody is going to tell you more about the sit-upons and our social studies connections.
We made the sit-upons out of paper bags donated from Neiman's. We stuffed it with plastic grocery bags to sit on and not get dirty or wet. We drew landforms like rivers, oceans, mountain hills, and plains. Landforms are the shape of our land. At the park, we climbed up a big sledding hill and sat on our sit-upons at the top. We played games looking for natural and human characteristics. We even saw a human-made black hill across the street. Learning about landforms was cool. My favorite part was walking up the sledding hill.
The human characteristics are made by humans, and the natural characteristics are there naturally. We noticed that the sledding hill was a hill which was a landform, but then had great discussion as to whether it was natural or human characteristic. We concluded it to be human because it was made by humans for members of the community to come and play. We continually talk about human and natural characteristics in our curriculum, so to have these great examples from the beginning of the year are great references for us in our learning. Emma is going to tell you a little bit about what we observed when thinking like scientists on this field trip.
This tree was very old and big. Mrs. Kemp called it the witness tree because it had seen changes in the past. Trees have rings to show how old they are, and you can see this tree is over 100 years old. We went to the Bell River and saw erosion that caused a lot of problems for the people that lived on the other side. Erosion is when dirt is moved by gravity, wind, ice, and water. We drew the erosion and talked about ways we could stop the erosion. Mrs. O'Neill walked on the natural bridge, but we were on the human-made bridge. These trees fell down because of erosion. Science in the woods is fun. My favorite part was seeing the erosion and drawing stuff in the journal.
Journaling is really important in our curriculum today, and as students we observe, draw, and write a lot about what we've learned. Students are learning to think like scientists all the time. On the trail we did leaf rubbings to introduce what a property was and to teach the children about different properties of leaves like color and shape and pointiness. We also did an activity with Gator Gumbo to develop inquiry, and the labels were removed from all the soup cans, and so at the beginning of the day the kids had to dump their soup and pour them all together and make a mixture of liquids and solids. And then we went out on some hikes, and the parents were busy cooking over the fire, and when we returned the Gator Gumbo was ready, and Luke is here to tell you more about his experience with the Gator Gumbo.
I didn't think the Gator Gumbo was going to be that tasty, but when I tried it, it was so yummy. We studied solids and liquids in science. I noticed that the chicken and noodles were solids because they had their own shape. I knew the orange soup was a liquid because it took the shape of the huge pot. I used the Gator Gumbo as one of my story ideas. I think this field trip helped to make my stories more interesting by giving me ideas to write about. I wrote about the Gator Gumbo. I didn't think it was going to be that good because when the parents were stirring it, it didn't look good. I found out the Gator Gumbo was really yummy because all of the soups were mixed together. I wrote that I will never forget this night, never, not in a million years. My favorite part was climbing up the hill because it felt good to be at the top and see all of East China Park and the land around it.
Luke used this experience as an idea for his writing, but he was not the only one. Many students wrote about this experience, and because they felt so strongly about it, the use of craft came easy to them. We use craft to help make our writing creative. Here is an example of the use of craft in Colin's writing. We saw a big hill, and my mom pushed me all the way to the top. Wow, that took a lot of energy. When we got to the top, it was freezing cold like Antarctica. And then towards the end, he said, at last, I was at the top of the hill. I felt like a superhero flying in the sky. So to feel like a superhero is pretty awesome.
We also took some time to observe the fall season. The students were inspired and their artistic craft came out in their watercolor paintings.
The shared experiences that we had that day at the park continued when we got back to the classroom, and we even made a giant timeline to show the changes as that park that started out as a family farm was changed into the park that we have today. So to learn all the different changes as it was purchased and those decisions were made through the community. Madison is now going to tell you about how this trip allowed us to develop and grow as our Gator community.
We learned about the changes they have made to East China Park. For example, the dog park, the sledding hill, and soccer field were all made for the community to enjoy. I feel like we were having fun being all together. That day, one time that we were all together was when we were singing at the campfire. It was fun to eat lunch together because we got more of the Gator gumbo. I will never forget that because of the time I spent with my Gatorific friends. We went on the kiddie escape, and I got to go on the tire swing with my friends. One of my favorite moments was going over the bridge singing I Love the Mountains. We were singing and bonding together. Thank you to Neiman's for donating the paper bags for our sit-upons. Thank you to our Gatorific parents for helping us on this special day. It was a Gatorific day.
Thank you. Any questions?
So great job.
Thank you.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Motion is needed for the approval of minutes. Regular Board of Education meeting, January 25th, 2016. Approval of payment of bills, financial statement, and schedule of investments.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kennegbauer.
Support.
Support by Mrs. Murphy. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Recognition of persons wishing to address the board. I have one card here from Mr. Dennis Delore and boundary change.
Thanks for seeing me today, guys. I live at 6811 Bell River Road. Now, directly be affected by boundary change. We moved there. My wife and I made the decision to move there because we knew our kids would be going to Pine River Elementary. Sending them to Palms just isn't in our family structure, I guess. I'd much rather have them go to St. Clair schools. My brother, sister, nieces, nephews, mother, father, grandfather, great-grandfather, they all went to St. Clair. Change that boundary, and I'll move my family again. So I just thought I'd put my 2 cents in about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delore. Next item on the agenda are our reports. Superintendent report.
If you came for East China recognition or any of the other ones and would like take off to escape, yes. Now would be a good time.
He knows how to clear a room.
President Buer, members of the Board of Ed, I want to give you an update on some things happening both in Lansing with respect to the election laws that were passed recently, as well as take another opportunity to speak to the May ballot proposal and some of the information that I hope that the community can start talking about, start asking about, and we can provide them the answers that they need. So if we can, there we go. So I've shared before that right prior to Christmas, Public Act 269 was passed that imposed a 60-day gag order from the day of the election, and that was specifically that prevented public bodies from speaking at all about not even providing factual information 60 days prior to the date of the election. But on the 5th of this month, Judge O'Meara granted an injunction, and therefore, as a result, that law is currently enjoined. The legislature is looking at potentially changing it right now, but what we're basically saying is that all the old rules for school elections and municipal elections are back as they were before, in that we may provide factual information to our community all the way up until the day of the election. So let's talk a little bit about that. And tonight I want to focus specifically on the idea of upgrading the building infrastructures to improve energy efficiencies and reduce operating costs. We've talked about this before, but I really want to highlight and focus on that tonight. The idea that as we replace outdated equipment, we will replace it with equipment that's not only new, but obviously much more technologically savvy and much more energy efficient, and we are going to be realizing savings, much needed savings toward the operating budget. I've gone over and over this story about the Marine City High School pool heater. I won't repeat the entire story again. I only want to hit the idea that every project in the bond proposal has been approved by the Department of Treasury, and every one of those projects will come to you in terms of competitively bid. We will make sure that this money, we get the most bang for the buck by competitively bidding it, so that we can do as many in the entire project scope and maybe a little bit beyond that. Again, with every new piece of equipment like this pool heater that had a 2-year return on investment in replacing the old one, there is considerable savings for the general fund. Rooftop units. I've talked about the pool heater several times, but you can take a look. In summer of 2014, we had to replace roof units at Marine City Middle School just because the old ones were aging. They had no longer ceased to operate, or they ceased to operate, excuse me. And this little project at Marine City Middle School will be replicated over 7 district facilities as we replace rooftop units with much more higher efficiency ones, again resulting in a good deal of savings to the general fund, but just as importantly also providing us the opportunity to have more regular and consistent temperatures in our classrooms and our buildings, and not have to worry about what may or may not happen when we turn those boilers on or we turn on those fans the first time. I talked about boilers. Here's a couple of examples of an older boiler and even that newer boiler compared to this one, and yet this boiler here is upwards of 12 to 15 years old. We have new boilers planned at 3 schools, including the conversion of gearing we know from electric, being an all-electric building, to a more efficient and less expensive natural gas and hot water facility like the rest of our facilities, excuse me. How much savings might we achieve and how much more efficient? Well, by transitioning from electric heat to natural gas, we take a look at these figures from just 2 years ago. We had electricity and natural gas at Bell River about 36.6, at Pine River 34.4. Those facilities, of course, are sister buildings, but they are also approximately the same size as Gearing. Eddy's bigger, Palms is smaller, so they're approximately the same size. Take a look at that figure of electricity alone, because it's the only utility at Gearing. we could conceivably save upwards of $80,000 a year, depending on, obviously, weather and how cold, et cetera. But that is a significant amount of savings that we would be realizing annually through this work being done in the proposal. I talk a little bit about consistent temperatures for you, and we've discussed this as well, but we have control systems. Think about them as your house thermostat, okay? These are our control systems in our building. Some are so old that they're actually operating on an old DOS system, okay? It's very expensive to have serviced because it is so old, and in some instances we can't even have them serviced. And St. Clair High School, which has the original building and 2 separate additions to it, is actually operating on 3 different control systems. That's not different thermostats maybe for your upstairs and downstairs working in conjunction. No, those are 3 separate systems that are varying in age and their effectiveness. A newer control system you can see here, right, has the ability for us to access this online and by the operations department 24 hours a day, anywhere, from home, from the office, anywhere. And obviously would allow us to, again, save considerable utility costs and the result on the operating budget. And we have new control systems in our plan for 8 of the district facilities. So again, I want to think about it in terms of making it a comparison to our home. Right? You can see a new furnace, and that's just, you realize savings from upgrading your older furnace, but you also would realize savings from upgrading your thermostat to a programmable one, zoning your house, maybe setbacks, etc. Same thing will be true. This bond proposal provides those twofold energy savings with, again, new boilers, new controls in new boilers in some of our buildings, 3 controls in nearly all of our buildings. Very, very important for us to realize ongoing savings for the district. Sinking fund modification. You may have heard, it's been in the paper, and you may have even heard that it passed. It has not passed. It is just getting out of committee right now. But they're looking to expand the uses of sinking funds beyond the current use, which is primarily just building renovation and repair. They would like to, the legislature is looking to potentially expand the use so that actually you can request, you have to, I'm sorry, you can't request 5, it'd be 3 mills rather than 5. The amount of time would be 10 to 20, there'd be reductions there, but you could expand the use for security improvements and or the acquisition of technology. And right now we know that our sinking fund, we cannot buy and or lease equipment, right? This would expand that. But unfortunately for us, it grandfathers all sinking funds prior to the authorization. So should this bill ever pass, it would not impact our district until such time as our current sinking fund expired and we were to potentially seek a new one. That makes sense because the legislature does not want to circumvent what the voters approved, the ballot language that they approved at the time, to expand the uses of those monies. So it would really only apply to new sinking funds should, again, this bill pass. So if you hear about this and you get a little bit excited about it and you say, well, why can't we just use that? It won't apply to us, and I want to make sure everyone's aware of that. Trustee Richley.
Now, would that, if we were to amend our sinking fund, would that apply then or not?
If we were to potentially go for a whole new election on the sinking fund to amend and or extend and or, but we would have to, whatever the millage would be.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Any new ones, and that would be it. Okay. So, I speak to sinking fund because I know a lot of folks have talked about why a bond proposal when that we do have a sinking fund in place. This right here is Bell River, and we talk about the lintels, and lintels is this right here, the roof. Kind of the roof or where the entrance ways, I guess, the side of the building. You can see here at Pine River, these were taken just a week or so ago, unfortunately on a cloudy day, but they're coming apart. You see this pole is holding up the overhang to the doors. The lintel is that area above your door frame, right? This was done at Bell River in 2014. We are projecting to do this project. In fact, you have an action item tonight to approve the bids so that we may repair Pine River here this coming summer and make that, make that a safe site. safe right now as long as those poles are there. We want to obviously not use poles for the rest of eternity. And then the football field. So I bring these to our attention because the stadium turf, all right, was redone not just out of because we wanted to, but it was 12 to 14 years old. So just as this was separating here, where this door frame and building part is separating, we had seams in the turf that were coming apart. We had some other issues with the turf. It was a safety issue, exactly, Treasurer Murphy. It's a safety issue. And so you can see one of the next big issues for us is, just like this is a playing surface, so are the tennis courts a playing surface, and we need safe playing surfaces there. And we've incorporated that into the bond proposal at both high schools. Okay? Reason why I bring this up is because this was in 2014, 15, 16. Our sinking fund really allows us to do one major project each year. At $660,000 of revenue, it again allows us one major project and the ability to carry over some money so that we have a little bit in reserve in the event that something unforeseen happens. We lose a boiler, we need to replace a roof on the fly that we didn't anticipate, something along those lines, okay? In this particular case, the pool heater at Marine City was one of those projects that we did with the sinking fund because we didn't anticipate having to replace it at that time, okay? But you've narrowed the scope of this bond proposal to $49.25 million, which sounds large, but we'll talk about that shortly. But even at that rate, at $660,000 a year, it would take 75 years, or 74.6, 75 years, to do all the projects in this bond proposal. Okay? Our sinking fund is great. We thank the community. It's helped us a great deal to do many, many things, and it will continue to do us things, but really only one major project a year, plus whatever may come up. Want to remind folks again that we have been extremely good stewards of the public's money, that Bell River Lintel project that I spoke of came in on time and under budget. In March of 2015, we refinanced all of our school bonds, and that reduced the tax levy for bonds to a level below what we were paying even before we passed the bus millage. And I've said before, and you've shared with the other community, is that community again was very generous, and they supported us strongly by passing the bus millage. And in doing so, they thought their taxes would increase, and in fact, we then refinanced all those bonds, and they went down while we were still able to purchase those buses. Stadium turf project last summer came in, again, on time and under budget. You will tonight approve the competitively bid Pine River project, and we will again assume and work towards bringing it in as always our goal, on time and under budget. Okay, and the bond that we are proposing, the bond proposal here, not November of 16, sorry, that should say May of 16, we are issuing in 2 series. By issuing it in 2 series, we spread out the amount that we borrow and when we borrow it, so we were able to, again, reduce the number of mills that is potentially to be paid as for this project. Let's take a quick look at what mills and those things are as we talk about the cost, because I know to some folks and to many of us, $49.25 million seems like an awful lot, but we are sharing that across our entire school district, our entire community. And this is the taxable value in 2013-14 from Bulletin 1014. That was the most recent one until yesterday when they came out with the newest one. But notice Port Huron and the East China are to the far left. They have the largest property tax bases, and as a result, we are able to have the 2 lowest bonded millage. What this really means is that we are able to tax ourselves at a much lower rate to generate the same, if not more, dollars because of our property tax base. We are a very fortunate community in that aspect. You can see Marysville is at 8.04 mils right now. We currently are at 3.04 mils. The average, 4.68. We know that Port Huron is pursuing a bond proposal as well. And we know that Yale has a sinking fund as well. So if we were to take a look at taking the debt mills, the sinking fund, and the proposed increases of all and if they were to pass here in May, we would still be in the lower half of the millage rate across our county, and we would still be below average in our county. Again, being able to tax ourselves at a lower rate and still generate the necessary funds for our students and teachers in the classroom. We've talked about a $100,000 home, and we know that is a general figure to make math easy, but not a whole lot of folks live in exactly a home that could sell for $100,000. So another way to take a look at this is your market value and your taxable value. Of course, if you could sell your home for $40,000, your taxable value is probably $20,000. But really, for every $10,000 of taxable value, this proposal costs the property owner $11. So $40,000 market value, $20,000 taxable value, $22 increase, or $1.83 a month. Okay, all the way across to 60, 80, 100, 120. You can keep going out, but really, if you were to take a look at your your tax statement, property tax statement, and take a look at your taxable value, it's $11 for every $10,000 of taxable value. Let's speak to this as well, because I know some folks discuss and or want to say, well, any tax increase or any amount is difficult on those who might be on a fixed income or have just lower incomes in general. So I want to remind everyone that the Michigan Homestead Property Tax Credit applies to individuals whose household resources are less than or equal to $50,000. And household resources is not your adjusted gross on your tax forms on your W-2. Your household resources are wages plus maybe any other forms of income that you might have. Your wages plus if you collected unemployment during the year, wages if you're collecting alimony, wages and maybe any retirement benefits you might be getting. Right? If your home's taxable value is $135,000, that's pretty much almost all of the homes in our area. I know there's some above $270,000, but the majority would fall under that. So really the issue here is household resources. But if you qualified for those under those two criteria, the Michigan income tax credit of up to 60% would apply. So let's take back from this the one right in the middle, the $80,000 home with a $40,000 taxable credit, taxable value. It would be $44, $11 per 10,000, okay, or $367 a month. But the tax credit would kick in if you qualified up here, if your household resources were under $50,000, 60%, $2640. And we know we always round up or round down on our tax forms, because it all works out. So if we took the $44 minus the $26, the actual proposal's financial impact on you would be $18 or $1.50 a month. We've shown this table before many times. I want to show it again because although it's 1.1 mils, this proposal is 1.1 mils in the first year, and then it slowly goes 114, 122. This column stays at 414, and the reason for that is the natural increase in property values across our entire district. So when we talk about this $22, $33 in the first year, really the projected figures in the first 1, 2, 3, 4 years, it would maintain the same. So that $22, $33 increase would maintain. It wouldn't keep going up over those first few years, okay? And we know that we have a decrease in 2021 of both the current millage as well as the new millage, which makes it 383. But this, of course, is the one that we always come back to and is extremely important for everyone to understand, is that in 2020 and 2021, all right, which is only 4-5 years out, right? The PAC, we are finished paying off the bonds that built the PAC. And then out here in 2024-25, we're finished with the tech bonds. And as a result, for 15 of the 20 years of this bond, taxes are actually less than they are today. Okay? We want to continue to let folks know that. Information on the ballot proposal is available at the school district's website. You go on the website, right on the home page, front page, there's a button for school election info. And there you will find a link to a frequently asked questions document. If you have any questions, if you have some questions that aren't answered in that frequently asked questions, you may click on this link to submit a question. And when you submit that question, we'll make sure that you are responded to either via email and or phone. We'll call you right back or get right back with you. That's an opportunity. There's project lists by building on the website if you want to see what's happening in your particular, where your son or daughter goes to school. We do have the display boards out and the display boards in different buildings, but that has just an overview of the projects. If you want the entire project list, that is on the website. We have an informational video that we hope to be finishing this week that we will be putting there and then putting out through other avenues. And then we have a link to where you would register to vote. If you are not currently registered to vote, we please encourage you to do so. The deadline is for April 4th. To register to vote, and all the information there and all the forms are there. There's a fillable form that you can print and take out, as well as the district facility studies. So, any questions? No?
Thank you. Mr.
Trustee Richley.
I don't want to get into a debate, but I just wanted to point out a couple of things. And under the average for a $50,000 taxable value home, it would be $106 per year for 20 years. Approximately. And also, the numbers here are estimated and under the assumption that the Edison plants will be still open, which is almost a third of our taxable value. So potentially, I mean, obviously we're talking estimated versus actual, but I think the other thing that we have to consider is the sinking fund, which I'm a proponent of increasing that without increasing, which wouldn't increase taxes over time and would bring in more revenue over time. And assuming, or under the assumption that that legislation that's being pushed is passed, which I do believe it is going to, but we'll see. But if that's to happen, then we could use those funds for technology, which was part of the reason why we did not go with that over the bond, which also would save on the consulting fees as well as the, what was the other thing, the contingency funds and all that kind of stuff.
Well, Trustee Richley, much of what you said is if and maybes, and to be honest with you, our teachers and students need instructional technology that will help them compete. That'll help them compete tomorrow, not if and when something happens well down into the future. And our teachers and our students need to be in facilities that they know are going to be safe, warm, and dry. And so I'm not willing to wait, and I'm not willing to say if and when. The time is now.
There is no debate on the need for technology and that kind of thing, but for instance, putting an addition on the administration building is not a need. The addition on that building, or whatever, the building for the stadium, that's not a need.
That was taken off. That was taken off.
No, they're on there. They're in there.
No, they were not. Not in, no.
No, you're correct. Well, you're correct. You're correct in that we have listed it as a potential addition. We had to do that for Treasury's sake because any new construction, even if we were to build just 2 rooms on, just to make sure that we had the appropriate space, but whether it be renovation and or addition to create a preschool center here is extremely important, as we again are looking at operating 3 sites right now. And as we want to, if we want to provide, number 1, state-of-the-art preschool facilities, just as we want to have K-12 state-of-the-art facilities, that's important. But most important is by operating 3 sites instead of 1 is the expense to the general fund, which is obviously 3 times larger because we're operating 3 sites. But again,
But in closing, I just want to say that this is not the only option And I believe that not only the most efficient, but the most thrifty way of doing it is going the sinking fund route. And that's something that I believe, if this proposal is to fail in May, I believe that that's something that the board should reconsider.
Well,
I'd just like to say, on the other side of things, that I appreciate the presentation and, showing us the savings that we're going to have as a district to our general fund by making the repairs that the bond provides. I don't see how we go forward with a situation where we have to continually make all these fixes to aging equipment and take that money out of our general fund when we don't have that money there. So thank you for showing us that, and thank you for showing the amount of money that it's going to cost people, because I think that is a question that people have. So that was good information, and I disagree with Mr. Richley and think that we're moving definitely in the right direction with this proposal.
I agree.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the state budget proposed Medicaid changes.
Yes, in your packet, I've provided you the draft of a letter that I am asking for your approval tonight to send to Senator Pavlov and Representative Lowers, encouraging them to speak with the governor and or to, when their turn comes to propose a budget in the House and the Senate, to not look to move Medicaid to HMOs, health maintenance organizations, for a couple of reasons. First, right now, our state does not have a very good track record in turning over control to outside agencies. And secondly, because an HMO is a profit-making organization, right now, the monies that we and local health organizations are able to save in finding efficiencies, we're able to use those savings for other programming to support students and support the community, whereas it would be believed that if an HMO was to realize savings, they would take it as profit. So I don't have maybe the wherewithal to explain all of it, but just in theory, it does not make good sense at this time. Medicaid payments to groups like community mental health and our school district are vital for us to provide programming for those students and families that need them.
Comments, questions? Move on to item number 8, information discussion items. First one is Pine River Lentil replacement job.
Again, if you have any questions of Operations Director Kirk Grzelka, he is here this evening to answer any of those questions. The Pine River, because it is a sister building to Bell River, the architecture and engineering has already been done. So we're looking primarily now just at the construction costs. We received 3 bids. We are recommending the lowest bid. That was $77,000, approximately lower than the other bidders, than the next lowest bid. We are asking tonight that you approve this in an action item because it's important for us and the awarded bidder to start ordering materials, to have materials on site. With the Bell River job, we had all the materials on site so that the day after students and teachers left, we could start construction, which was very important because when we said on time and under budget with that project, we didn't mean on time as before the students came. We had that project done before teachers came back because August is a very busy time. So we'd like to get started right away.
On this original program, when we first found out the problem with our schools, did we not, wasn't this bid that we were looking at near the $500,000 range to try to fix these? And then based on your discovery and work, did we not then work it down considerably?
Yeah, that was an original estimate, and fortunately, the bids came in lower, yeah.
Yep. In fact, these bids at or lower than the work from 2 years ago?
A little bit lower.
A little bit
than
lower.
what it was 2 years ago.
So that's obviously very, very welcome, refreshing as well.
Did you say before that the low bid is the same company that did the Pine River project, or no?
Unfortunately, no,
it's not.
it is not. That company was the middle bidder, and we just, even though we had a great experience with them, we couldn't justify recommending to you a bid that was $77,000 in excess of the low bid.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the Pine River Lintel Replacement Project bid as presented.
I'll
It
second.
is in the action
It's
items.
on the action items.
I thought this was action.
No, that
we're
was
in
discussion.
We're in discussion. We are in discussion.
We will accomplish that in just a second. A Boundary Schools of Choice Committee update.
At the November meeting, it was requested that a committee be formed to look at this issue. That committee has met, I think, weekly since the start of the new year in January. Trustee Distelrath and Secretary Frank served on that committee along with several other community members and parents, and it was chaired by Ms. D. Shaw. So I don't know, I'll turn it over to you folks to present the findings. Or the recommendations, I guess.
Mayor, you want to flip a coin?
Go ahead.
Yeah, we met 3 times as a committee. Basically, and this, I wasn't really even aware or 100% aware of this area that we're talking about, but basically the conversation turned to the situation of we have students, we have an area of the district that where our elementary boundary and our secondary boundary is not aligned, and so we have students who would live in the Marine City area of the district for secondary, but in the Pine River area for elementary school. And then when those students then, or some of those students in the Pine River area, I'd say, I guess all of them are split and go into different directions. So the committee's discussion centered around the need to keep those students together for kindergarten through 12th grade versus having that split occur before heading into middle school. That was a big part of the conversation. And then also talking about, along with the boundary situation, there was discussion about school of choice and looking at our current written policies, and there were some things in there that the committee, through discussion, looked at updating. There was some reference to a law that we couldn't find, so we wanted to make sure that that was clarified. And the big thing too is making sure that, along with honoring school of choice, that we looked at making sure that we are paying attention as a district to spaces available in the number of sections in each school, so that we're being as efficient as we can when we schedule and place kids into schools when we make those school of choice decisions. Anyone jump in?
No, I think you're covering it. Yeah, there was a policy in place, and the policy wasn't really too off base, like Mr. Disselrath said, just cleaning it up a little bit, and again, just making sure that the policy is being enforced. Transportation came up into the discussion to make sure that the school of choice students are being transported by their parents or themselves. I think we found that there were some discrepancies there as well, which is also costing the district extra funds.
I'm not sure who to ask this question to, but this map that we have here, the part here, like where the blue line goes to Palms, that part right there, that is the area that's being changed. And then
Everything under the red line.
right, and that red line right there separates the two. Okay, the question that I have, and well, the concern that I have with the ones going to Palms, I can't imagine how long their bus ride would be. Probably over an hour.
Not even close. If you want to, okay, I would dispute that would be an hour.
I would dispute that. Well, not necessarily, but I have, my granddaughter lives less than a half a mile from Bell River, and she's on the bus for 50 minutes, so.
I guess, you know.
And she's in kindergarten.
I guess, is there some sort of report that the committee put together, or, I mean, aside from these 2 pages, or like the research that went into it? I would like to take a look at the transportation information and that kind of thing. Because the concern that I have, and I think I have kind of a special perspective on this, or a unique perspective, because I actually lived in that area before, on Shady Lane over by, or it's in that area. So I mean, I don't see where the excuse of, well, you know, Marine City kids and St. Clair kids going to an elementary school. I actually thought that was what made Pine River one of the most successful elementaries in our district. But I'm willing to look at the reports, and I'm willing to look at what we're talking about here, but I think that's something that we need to consider.
There seemed to be, like I said, this was kind of, this area of the district was kind of new to me. It seemed to be that there was confusion around this area. It's like a gray area as far as confusion as far as the boundaries being different for secondary and elementary, and you know, what high school am I going to go to, and do I have to school of choice, and those kinds of things. That in our conversations, people that were a part of the committee brought that up, and I think part of the discussion, part of this was trying to clarify and clean that up a little bit.
Okay.
How many students does this affect? Do we have a number?
You got 3 in my house.
Approximately 8 to 10 in a grade level.
Per grade level?
Correct.
Now, the other thing that, what would be the financial impact? Wasn't there something that you said like a year and a half ago that it would increase the cost if we did something like this?
Where those lines are currently drawn would transfer, if, for example, if there are 3 sections of 5th grade at Pine and 2 at Bell, for a total of 5, it would flip those numbers and there would not be any additional cost.
Well, the other thing that the committee had to look at was potentially still the possibility of having to close Eddy Elementary. I mean, if the enrollment continues to decline. You know, I just want to thank everybody that sat on this committee, because there was a lot of information to go through, and a lot of hours spent, and a lot of discussions. And I think we all came to consensus that this was what we felt was in the best interest of all the students in the district. And we looked at the school of choice guidelines, and everybody that's in their current schools right now as far as secondary is going to be grandfathered in. Their siblings would be grandfathered in. And anybody that's in this area that's not grandfathered in still has the option to apply for school of choice. So I know these are hard decisions, but I think we did the best we could to make them as easy as possible on everybody that's going to be affected.
I think that's an important thing to repeat, and that is the committee did recommend grandfathering those families who are currently at a secondary building and their elementary siblings, and continue to allow school of choice options.
Right. The only thing that I also think that with the Washington Elementary closure back in 2009, I remember, well, even before that, I can't remember what the reasoning was that there was a boundary change, but back in 2002, they switched it from, or maybe it was 2000, they switched. It just keeps on switching for those families that live in that area, and I think there needs to be a level of consistency to some point.
Well, I think they, when they closed Washington, I think that was the last big boundary.
And the first one was
Yes.
when they built St. Clair Middle School. So that's exactly right. And now we're looking at declining enrollment and closing another elementary school, and they're good, and that you just have to do what you have to do.
Well,
It's not like this is anything that we want to do, but the committee didn't really see any other alternative with keeping all of those other circumstances in mind.
I mean, I understand that there are some people that want to move the boundaries, you know, to cook the numbers up for Marine City, which, however you want to say it.
Nobody wants to
That's
cook the
really
numbers.
not
That's
the
not
case.
fair.
Well,
That's not fair to even say
Why would you
that.
even think that? Why, that's,
No, but the thing.
I'm sorry?
The thing that it's been going on for 2 years, and I think that, I don't know, I'm willing to look at what your
I can't even
findings
believe you
were.
would say something like that to get
Well-
things started, Alan. That's not fair to all the work that's been done.
The,
That's not fair.
the original move when we made that boundary change before was Washington School. That's what made that move. When we closed Washington, we did not have enough room in Bell River and Palms to handle the children. So we thought that that section was easiest to access with a straight shot up the river road to balance out the need for closing Washington. That's the reason that boundary was changed, away from the consistency of secondary and elementary being the same. That was changed.
Right.
Now that we're looking at, again, as the committee says, closing another elementary school, the potential of doing that, this makes more sense and consistency in the district, having both boundaries identical.
I can understand if we
Do you
close.
understand where the elementary boundary is right now?
Yes, but
Where is it?
we're not closing an elementary school currently. So that's what I don't understand, and why we're having this discussion until.
If we continue to have declining enrollment, we're going to have to.
Right, but I don't understand why we're changing this for the 2016-17 school year when. But I would like to see the findings of the committee. I would like to take a look at those things, but because I don't think that 2 pages tells the whole story, so.
Well, it wouldn't with the hours that they sat in a room and the stuff that they would go through, so.
Correct.
Absolutely. Any other members of the committee? Mr. Shaw, any comment? I'm not sure if there's anybody else that would want to make a comment from, that was on the committee, or thoughts?
Dr. Shaw probably can't hear you. Dr. Shaw?
No. No. She doesn't.
Were you a member of the committee? No. Okay, please. Any members of the committees that are here?
Dee, did you want to say anything?
I think our overriding consideration on the committee, which I was, you can't hear me. I have to be careful I don't do something to your eardrums. Our overriding consideration in doing this was, what's the best thing for kids? Schools of choice is still available. We're not going to split up families. We don't want to do that. As any district continues to shrink in size, there are going to be boundary changes. It's not a lot of fun. And again, there's going to be no problem with siblings, with students who, we don't want kids in a number of different buildings. We have a policy that says students don't ride on the bus more than an hour. So all of those things were taken into consideration. Does the board have any questions?
Well, I kind of have a question about the policy that we had in place where we had, it's all been striked out, the numbers of students that can.
For the secondary, where there were
And the
4
elementary.
students per class.
There's, down here,
Right,
16 students per high
which is
school.
4 students per
Right,
class.
Right, that can,
And when we looked at those numbers that were written in the policy, we didn't know where those numbers came from. And the understanding was we were already over those numbers. And so,
by a lot.
right, so the thinking was you need to really, if looking at school of choice, if you're going to make a decision on a school of choice, you really just need to look at the space that's available versus some arbitrary number. And that's why those numbers were
Okay, I just wanted
removed
to
and
hear
just
from you
looking
guys.
at
Okay.
space.
We
was-
tried to track some things down, and it was really kind of
And you
interesting. 4 of us tried to find this public act, I think it was 227, nowhere to be found. We finally discovered that it was part of the school code, and it changes as the school code changes.
It's not only available space, but our practice with school of choice has been to allow it until such time as it would cost us to add a section.
And
We're
that's-
not going to
that's-
add additional sections.
That's
so.
what the new
Correct.
recommendation says.
Yep.
Correct.
Takes out the numbers of students to move, just that's qualification.
This one.
Makes sense.
Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Thank you
for
for
chairing
the
committee.
opportunity to work with a wonderful committee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shaw.
Thank you.
President Bewer, we would like to, with kindergarten roundup coming up, the first part of March, we'd like to see if this can be settled so families can get information at kindergarten roundup, accurate information.
Right, right. So I think we probably need to have a special meeting in order to vote on this.
Could I make a suggestion? That I would like to, if we could, and I realize, like the parents that are living in that area, I don't think probably one of them is in favor of this proposal, but if we could send a postcard to people that are parents / students that live in that area, so that they can, like giving them the board email and so that they can get a hold of us.
The email's on the website.
The email is, and the ability to do that and have all that done prior to kindergarten roundup is too short of a time frame. In terms of contacting every parent, and however that might be, prior to kindergarten roundup wouldn't occur. We would contact if the board were to take action to approve the recommendations of the committee, we would indeed contact every single parent to discuss with them how this may or may not affect them. Right? And it may not, because they may be grandfathered, right? But to do that in a timely manner and do it prior to kindergarten roundup, there is not sufficient time.
Now, when are we going to make when's the vote exactly going to be? What's the ballpark figure on?
Kindergarten roundup, I believe, is March 9th and 10th. And I believe Secretary Frank has asked for a special meeting prior to that. So basically, today is the 22nd, you've got the 29th.
I don't think this is enough time. We don't have enough time to go through the committee findings in that time frame. I don't see.
How many hours you're gonna how many hours you're gonna spend?
I'm willing to sit down and talk about it.
Well,
Let's go through it.
the difficulty with that, Trustee Richley, is that you've repeatedly asked to sit down with me to go over things, and I've provided you times, and you've never come, or you rarely come. And so I'm struggling right now with this request, and whether, if we follow up, will you follow up with a date and time, and then will you attend?
Well, first of all, yes, but on those issues, that was because I wasn't being listened to, but that's besides the point. But
Well-
on this subject, I think it's worth going through the public process, and I think that, and maybe we won't like the outcome of what happens, but at least the process
But that's why,
was transparent.
That's why we had a committee.
the committee in the first place.
The committee did the work that the board assigned them to do.
But it was not in public.
It doesn't have to be in public. We asked them to come up with a recommendation to the board with 2 board members sitting on the committee, to develop a committee, develop a strategy, and to come up with a recommendation to the board. That's what the committee did. And this is what we're looking at and proposing to pass, or to vote on anyway.
Now, if I can ask this question without, the parents that were on the committee, were they in the area that's going to be affected?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Not all, but the majority were. Many were.
I
mean, because
would-
we had a cross-representation across the entire district, but we focused on those folks who lived in that area.
It looks like seven of the committee members are parents in the district, so they, yeah.
That have children in that area.
Dr. Shaw's the only one that doesn't.
Well,
No.
no, because some of these people don't live in
Correct.
that area. That's
But
gonna
we
be-
ensured that there was representation of parents in that area.
I think it's too short of a time frame to make a decision for kindergarten roundup. I think, that's just my suggestion,
Okay.
but.
Well, please get us the information that Mr. Richley's asking for in regards to whatever.
I don't know what he's asking for, in essence, unless we sit down together and.
Well, whatever,
Mhm.
I guess maybe
Right.
the members of the committee would be able
And
to
if-
speak a little bit more on the process of which you went through.
I mean,
If this
basically, we
board-
sat down and looked at school of choice numbers throughout the district, how many students are school of choice in each building. So all of that information was looked at. We looked at the different maps, different school areas. Like I said, it seemed to me that the biggest point that the committee looked at was the K-12 consistency, the aligning of secondary and elementary boundaries. To me, that was the key aspect. Is that something that the board would like to move forward with or not move forward with? Seems to be the question before the board right now.
As a person that actually went through Pine River and then Washington Elementary when the boundary changed, and then Marine City Middle and High School, I don't see the big deal. I mean, as a person that actually went through it, and I can't think of one person that actually did make a big deal out of it. And people that did want to go to St. Clair or Marine City, vice versa, whatever, they school of choice. So I don't think that that's
I have
an
to
issue.
disagree with you. I've talked to numerous people that have split with their classmates and gone either north or south, and it's been difficult for almost everyone I've spoken to. And I actually had 2 of my own children go through it. So I think you're wrong, Mr. Ridgely.
Okay.
President Buer, I need to know whether or not to schedule a special board meeting or
Well,
not.
we'd have the choice of the 29th. Or
Well,
The point of reference as well, school choice meeting is March 1st through the 30th.
is March 1st through the 30th? Okay. then
So I think it
It would have to be on the 29th.
29th.
Yep.
Now, if we did, assuming we did go forward with this, how are we going to notify those people by the 1st if we have the meeting on the 29th?
The first is only for the kindergarten roundup, and they
Kindergarten
come here for that.
I just don't see how this is going to work. It's too short of time.
Making this change now gives the parents the time
More
they need.
time.
I look at, so. We would ask that we would have a special meeting on the 29th.
Okay, 6 or 7?
6.
Yeah, if people could make it at 7, that would help me out with my schedule, but.
That's fine.
Okay.
7's good.
Sorry.
No, it's our normal time, so it's fine.
The 29th, we said? Yes.
29th.
29th.
And we will get that information by
Again, when you say we will get that information, trustee, I don't know what information you're referring to. I will, in terms of, I can overload you with reams, or I can sit and answer your questions.
I'll
and
go
then
with
sprint.
reams and questions.
Fine. Fine.
Maybe the two committee members could direct Dr. Skulka a little bit with what you pulled out and looked at. And
I guess what I presented to the committee in terms of that information on the
What they were
electronically,
requesting.
we'll give to trustee Richley.
Okay, it's fine.
And that will be at 7 p.m.?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, and in the boardroom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion? All right, we'll move on to number 9, board action items. Per administration recommendation, the board approved the bid of $362,200 with M.L. Shaner for the Pine River lentil replacement job.
I'll make a motion to approve the Pine River Elementary lentil replacement bid as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported. Comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So moved. Item B, per administration recommendation, the board approves the bid in the amount of $104,105.04 with the St. Clair RISA for internet services for a period of 2 years, July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2018. Motion is needed.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kenneckbauer,
Support.
support by Mr. Distelrath. Comments or questions? Just how many years now is,
Craig?
Greg, that we've done our back through RISA?
Actually, we've been with them since before I was here, 1996.
1996?
Yeah.
And how many bids were there?
We do a bid, the last 3 bids have been 2-year bids. Before that was annual. So we used to do annual, now we do it every 2 years.
Okay.
Were there additional bidders other than RISA?
This year, there was no other additional bidders.
Okay.
The last bid, we did have 2 bids, which was a valid bid, but it was a considerably more, really more than double in price than what we're getting right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, one last thing. How does this compare to the price from 2 years ago?
Annually, this is $500 more annually. But this time around, I asked for, we have about 150% more bandwidth this time around with the new M-STEP testing, with all of our computers online. And now the M-STEP is going to be an adaptive test, which means every time you answer a question, it goes out to the internet. It has to determine whether the answer is correct. So with the bandwidth needed for that, $500 a year more for 150% more bandwidth is a good deal. Mr. Richley.
I just wanted to say, since I've been on the board, they've always been the lowest bidder, but also, the only question I had is why only a 2-year contract?
So,
agreement?
Yep, because we bid out through USF, through E-rate, and we get a discount off that. You'll see that we get 51% off. According to their rules, I could go out a little bit longer, but I don't want to go out a little bit longer. I think it's just like shopping for insurance or shopping for any service. I think if you go out too long, you might get yourself, stuck in a contract where you might be able to save some money or get some sort of,
Well, you wouldn't have been able to increase bandwidth.
That is correct.
Right.
Yeah, that is correct.
Very good.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Kennick, Bauer, and Disselrath. Sorry. Yes, sorry. Do it one more time. Sorry.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So carried. Next item, per administration recommendation, the board authorizes the superintendent to send Representative Lowers and Senator Pavlov a letter expressing their concern over the proposed changes in Medicaid as presented, reviewed, and discussed. Motion needed.
So moved.
Mr. Kennick-Bauer,
Support.
supported Mr. Distelrath. This letter is in our packet.
It was.
And
Yep.
any comments or questions, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carried 6-1. Mr. Richley dissent. Next item on our agenda is a closed session for the purpose of discussing negotiations. Recommended action that the Board of Education goes into closed session pursuant to Section 8C of the Open Meetings Act, Act 267 of 1976, that being for board discussion connected with the negotiations of a collective bargaining agreement. A roll call vote. Mrs. Murphy?
Yes.
Mrs. Frank?
Yes.
Mr. Kennick-Bauer?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Richley?
Yes.
Mr. Disler?
Yes.
So moved. When we come out of closed session, there'll be no further business to the board. We will come back to the boardroom to adjourn. Thank you.